a curious application of applied Heideggerianism in Schmidt, where he shows that the method of casuistry, of interpreting the principle into a specific legal case, must have a moment of what he calls concrete neutrality, which is a strange term. Not sure what he wants to say with the word neutrality. That's a long story in a way. It's been used differently in the tradition, and it comes up in Heidegger's Kant book. But what he's saying in substance is that in any case, something of inexorable unrepeatability comes in. The being as what cannot be repeated comes in, so that one can't simply say the case would always be settled this way, because history is flowing through. In trying to get to closer to what we must understand as what Heidegger is saying is freedom, I'm thinking of the basic meaning of existentialism. We could say it very simply by saying, instead of the picture that we look at in the standard picture in the universities today, which is consciousness and the object world, what the existentialists add is that the consciousness that we may all have in common as the same is also the consciousness of us as ourselves. So we who are ourselves irreducibly, unrepeatably, are in the midst of the build, or the world of things being the most vague way to speak, or beings in Heidegger's sense, such that this is what existence means. Neither the consciousness as just a generic, or the world as such, but this term of the unrepeatable individual within that has consciousness, as overlapping, as in the environment, which is not only a picture but also an Umwelt, an environment. So here one can ask, how is the thinking of history, Geschichte as such, brought in contradistinction to the history or Geschichte of any individual Dasein, of any existence? Of course, we have the formal concept of the Das Man within this Das Man and almost split, right? And we have also the authenticity and unauthenticity. So then we must think that in addition to the one we are ourselves, we're also the history of some sphere. And then you get in Heidegger quite a few reflections along the line of, I think in the beginning of the Black Notebooks, where he's saying twice, who are we? Who are we? To say, what are we about? What is our purpose? But also, who are we? To say, where is the circumference that describes the group we're talking about. As far does that extend? Um, Whether that's simply a matter of language, for instance, is hard to say. I reiterate that this question of the logos as calculation, we should remember that logos means speech. It doesn't mean language. Glossa is language in Greek. And also Heidegger makes these distinctions between I think I'm reiterating if it hadn't been lost in the other recordings. I'm saying it for, if it were lost, I'm saying it for the first time, but he makes a distinction between the Platonic use of speech to name the eidos, to name the look of something, which then becomes that which we can speak about in terms of knowledge, in terms of ratio, becomes connected to reasoning and reason, because it's something held outside the flow of time that we can learn about permanently. But he says there's also this bare nomination. There's a way of speaking which is simply naming things, which is not identical to reasoning, and it's already visible in the Greeks. I think also in thinking of the Greeks, we should remember that this question of the being prior to the subject object spaltum, and not being either quote unquote idealistic or quote unquote realistic, doesn't mean that the Greeks were in the state that Heidegger's in. The discovery of Dasein, the discovery of existence, of history, of time, Dasein as time, is not present for the Greeks, or in fact, it's not present at all properly. That's the problem that he's raising, is that for the Greeks, although they didn't have the technological essence which moves because of the extremity of the subject against the object, the technological essence comes in. And Nietzsche tries to overcome that through life, but Heidegger says life is still just switching the subject into a different register, as it were. It doesn't actually get rid of the subject in that way. But the Greeks had being as presence, being as availability. That was the way they thought being. So in that sense, they have not come to this point which Heidegger is presenting as the ultimate point of seeing Dasein. So in trying to think of what freedom means there, I'm thinking more and more of how this is being said not of something large or something far away or distant. It's something that is constantly flowing. It's something that's we should try to get closer to it in our thinking, but then it becomes difficult without, as one can see through the whole of Heidegger's thinking, that he keeps thinking and keeps thinking. Why can't he quite get at what he wants to bring out and to compel us with?